And welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Right now, folks, Safety Systems is looking to hire experienced technicians to install and service security systems, cameras, fire alarm systems, and more. They'll work with you. I mean, it's a great company with company vehicles for their techs. Long history as a trusted family-owned East Tennessee business. They get so much business, they need you to join their team. Call them this week or visit safetysystems.com. I love JJ Surlis. I tell you, give him a shout this week. No better place to work than Safety Systems. Okay, back with David Ubben. Florida State's Board of Trustees met this week, and for the first time ever, someone in the ACC publicly started talking about we're not happy with the league's money. The athletic director pointed out that the league is going to leave them about $30 million a year behind their peers in the SEC and the Big Ten. And then he said, in his words, something has to change. Right now, he's pushing for an uneven revenue split. He said, I know that's not going to cover everything, but at least it's a step in the right direction. That would mean Clemson and Florida State make more money than anyone else. The Big 12 tried that with Texas and Oklahoma. That is no way to keep a conference together. The board actually asked, you mean it would only cost $120 million? We could cover this in 4 years? Yes. Okay, that's not a good sign if you're the ACC. But there's a grant of rights that means even if somebody buys their way out, even if Florida State said, here's my $120 million, I'm gone to the SEC or wherever, their TV rights are still tied to the ACC until 2036. Mm-hmm. That is the thing that they're going to break. That's the thing that's got to be broken at some point. Nobody's figured out how. My question, what's happening this week for the first time? Is this the beginning of the end of the ACC?
Well, I think when you talked about conferences moving, they've always been moving, but in the sort of modern move, you look back at 2010 when the Big Ten started, we call it expansion, right? Yeah. And it was all about, well, we're getting ready to launch these cable networks, and we want to get into cable, that's why Rutgers is in the Big Ten. Well,
that's why Missouri's in the SEC.
Well, Missouri has Kansas City and St. Louis. Rutgers they delivered the New York market,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
New York and New Jersey. Okay, well, now then it goes to, it's sort of realignment. Well, now
big brands.
Now we just call it, at our company, we just call it consolidation because that's what it is. It's consolidating into the Big Ten and the SEC. It's not the Power Five anymore. It's the Power Two. And that's consolidating. And what's happening is those gaps in revenue are becoming so great. John, you love this show. You have a lot of institutional knowledge. If somebody wanted to pay you $40 more additional dollars to run a Pac-12 show, I think you would do it. It would be tough. Sure. It'd be a weird fit, but that's kind of where we're at. USC and UCLA are
more than $40. $40 million.
That's what I mean. Yeah, but yeah. The Big Ten is a bi-coastal league now. That's insane. Yeah. And
it won't last long.
These conferences were built to be regional, and they're not. And the reason is because, again, the Big Ten and the SEC are making so much more money that if you're a big brand, and these moves are now just about, can you play good football, and do you make a compelling television product that people want to see, more than delivering networks. And that's why you're seeing all the big-time football programs consolidate into two major leagues. And it's a matter of time. You're not going to see that grant of rights extended.
Yeah, it won't be extended, but it goes through 2036. And everybody has sent all those ACC schools have had their lawyers at the ACC offices. The ACC won't release the thing. Mm-hmm. The press can't get a hold of it. I know you guys dug into it at The Athletic, but you have to go to the ACC office to see this thing, and no one so far has come up with a way to get out of it. It seems to me the best way to get out of it is for everybody to say we're all out, somebody else turn out the lights. But the problem is you've got Wake Forest, Duke, NC State, Boston College, schools that aren't going to be on the Big Ten or SEC radar. They're like, oh, no, you can't leave us. Mm-hmm. So as much as Florida State, this is a big shift. Somebody openly saying this, that we need changes or else. Until they come up with a way around the grant of rights, I don't know that this is the big death knell that we're expecting. It may be a death knell, but it's going to ring for 12 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you're at, is you're sitting here with probably an awkward period where they start crunching the numbers and figuring out, okay, when does it become financially advantageous for us to leave? Why did Oklahoma and Texas pay $100 million to get out of the league early? Because they knew they're going to make that more on the back end, and it's more financially advantageous for them to do that. So you're in a weird spot, but I remember when Texas and OU joined the SEC, I think on one of our podcasts, I said, hey, at what point do you guys think in the next 10 years, if you had to bet, that USC or Oregon would be members of the SEC? We had this conversation, and people were like, well, I don't know. I was close.
Yeah, you had them in the wrong conference.
I was close.
Yeah.
Wrong conference, and we'll see about Oregon and Washington, because the Pac-12 has their own bushel of issues now. If you've been following those TV negotiations, it's not great.
Teetering is the word.
Yes. So, again, if you're not in the Big Ten, the SEC, you're going to have to deal with some harsh realities in the future, and all of the ACC is grappling with that. So the short answer to your question, Clemson, Florida State, we'll see other members of the ACC. It's a matter of when, not if, they're in the SEC, in my opinion.
One thing that's interesting is Texas and Oklahoma made this deal with the SEC. Now, they got out a year early. They're coming in 2024, but they announced that 3 years out, which was a long way out. That was the longest it had been. The SEC and Big Ten are going to renegotiate their contracts again in about 5, 6, 7 years here. I wonder if at that point a Clemson and Florida State says, we're in there, let the SEC negotiate it, and we're going to play out the streak. We got 7 more years in the ACC. We'll meet your contract. We'll live with your grant of rights, but the door's closing. We're out of here.
Yeah.
That would be a big statement to have it hanging out there for that long. But typically when you've made that statement, it starts the ball rolling to get somebody out, as Texas and Oklahoma did this year.
Yeah, again, I just think it's a matter of when, not if. And for me, as a person who loves college football and grew up on it, again, it's sad because nobody's watching out for the sport as a whole. I think this is bad for the sport.
Yes.
This consolidation. It doesn't make sense that USC and UCLA are going to say, oh, we're going to say goodbye to all these rivalries. Texas and Oklahoma, we're going to not care about, Texas is going to play all the other schools in Texas. They're going to get to play Texas A&M, which is great, but there's a lot of people that hate Texas. Everybody wants their shot. The SEC, that's not really the case. It's just, it's bad for the sport because the sport doesn't have anybody watching out for the sport as a whole. It's everybody out for themselves, and it's rough.
I agree with you. When we come back, let's take a look at the ACC's teams very quickly, and we'll just look at, there are some that would be absolute fits for the Big Ten and wouldn't be fits for the Big Ten. There are some that would be fits for the SEC, some that would not. Let's just take a look at those very quickly. We've got much more to come in terms of Tennessee football and a hotel. We've never talked about hotels on the show, but we will today. Going back on the Sports Source.